What if the apocalypse had a wingspan? Picture this. You step outside on the most beautiful morning in history. The sky is infinite blue, the world spread out like a promise. Then you look up and watch creation break. Ancalagon the Black, the winged death, the dragon at the end of all things. When Tolkien's contemporaries pressed him about his monsters, he would smile and deflect. But about this one, the greatest dragon who ever flew, he was deadly serious. Before the rising of the sun, Eärendil slew Ancalagon the Black, the mightiest of the dragon host, and cast him from the sky, and he fell upon the towers of Thangorodrim, and they were broken in his ruin. 23 words. They describe the end of an age. Notice what Tolkien doesn't say: how big Ancalagon was, what he looked like, how the battle unfolded. Just this: when he falls, he breaks mountains, not damages them, not destroys them, breaks them in his ruin. This isn't just the death of a dragon. It's the moment when wonder itself becomes too dangerous for the world to contain. But here's what chills the marrow. Ancalagon isn't Tolkien's first dragon. He's the last. The final answer to a question the professor had been asking his entire career. How great can a monster be before it breaks the very story that contains it? This is Monsters' Mirror, our journey through Tolkien's darkest creations, where each terror becomes a reflection of ourselves. We've faced the Balrog's ancient rage and Shelob's endless hunger. We've solved Smaug's riddles and fled the Watcher's nameless dread. Tonight, we ascend to the breaking of the sky, where even the gods hold their breath, and the only hero brave enough to face the end of everything must sacrifice his world to save it. Before Ancalagon ever darkened Middle-earth, a different kind of monster stirred, in the mind of a professor who refused to apologize for wonder. The year, 1936. The place, Oxford University. The occasion, the most revolutionary lecture on mythology ever delivered. Beowulf, the monsters and the critics. Picture the scene: distinguished medievalists shuffling papers, some stifling yawns. Dragons, after all, were best left to children's tales. One professor leans to another. All very poetic, but it's not real scholarship, is it? But Tolkien's voice cuts through the politeness, like a blade through silk. The monsters are not an inexplicable blunder of taste. They are essential. Essential. Not obstacles to the real story, not primitive superstitions to be explained away. The blazing heart of every myth that matters. For centuries, scholars had treated monsters as embarrassments, distractions from the serious themes of heroism and kingship. Tolkien saw deeper. In that lecture hall, he declared war on shallow thinking. The dragon is not a distraction from the story. It is the story. Years later, colleagues would remember the fire in his eyes when he spoke of dragons, the way his voice dropped to a whisper when he said the word monster, as if he were not merely defending Beowulf's worm, but summoning one of his own. And perhaps he was. Because that night, walking home through Oxford's narrow streets, Tolkien carried a dangerous idea. If Beowulf's dragon could end a kingdom, what kind of dragon could end an age? The theory was complete. Now came the terrible test of making it real. Every age summons its own monsters. Glaurung the Golden, father of dragons, slithering through Turin's nightmares. Master of lies, weaver of curses. When he speaks, heroes forget their names. When he dies, the very silence is a wound. Smaug the mighty, riddling and boasting in his halls of stolen gold. Magnificent in his malice, terrible in his loneliness. A dragon who could be outwitted, but never ignored. The Balrog of Morgoth, ancient as the mountains, wreathed in shadow and flame. A demon that turns courage to ash with the crack of its whip. Each of these was a world-ending terror in its time. Yet imagine them all together. Glaurung's cunning, Smaug's greed, the Balrog's wrath, and still their combined shadows would be dwarfed by Ancalagon's wingspan. Listen to the arithmetic of apocalypse. When Ancalagon falls, he doesn't just die, he breaks the landscape of the world. Thangorodrim, 3 volcanic peaks that pierce the sky like spears, are shattered in his ruin. Not damaged, not toppled, shattered. Tolkien doesn't describe Ancalagon's size because no words could contain it. Instead, he shows us the hole his death leaves in the world itself. But here's the genius. This isn't just about scale, it's about cost. Every previous dragon could be defeated by a hero with enough courage. But Ancalagon, the only being mighty enough to face him, must abandon the world to save it. This is Tolkien's final exam in monster making. The question he set himself: how do you create a creature so vast that its defeat changes the rules of reality itself? The answer soars above us on black wings, blotting out tomorrow. In the trembling moment before Ancalagon's roar, even the Valar, the gods themselves, hold their breath. Below, the host of the West falters. Morgoth's armies have driven the free peoples to the very edge of hope. Balrogs stride through burning cities. Orcs feast on the corpses of kings. And then, the sky tears open. Ancalagon descends, not flying, but falling upward, a gravity of malice that pulls darkness after him. His wings don't beat so much as they reshape the air. His roar doesn't echo, it rewrites the laws of sound. Every eye turns skyward. Even the bravest warriors fall to their knees, waiting for the end. But above the terror, a new light stirs. Eärendil the mariner. Once, he sailed mortal seas in search of the undying lands. Now he commands the winds of heaven itself. His ship Vingelot, blazing with the captured fire of a Silmaril, the last pure light in a world gone dark. This is no ordinary hero facing an ordinary monster. Eärendil has already died to his old life. To reach the Blessed Realm and plead for Middle-earth's salvation, he had to surrender his mortality, his home, his chance to ever walk among his people again. He is less than he was, and infinitely more. The aerial battle begins. Dragons and eagles clash in a storm of fire and feathers. From below, armies see only flashes, light and shadow, hope and doom, spiraling through the sky. Listen to Tolkien's description of the battle. There was battle in the air all the day, and through a dark night of doubt. A dark night of doubt. For 24 hours, the fate of all creation hangs in the balance. Not just Middle-earth, but the very possibility that good can triumph over absolute evil. Inside that shining ship, what does Eärendil feel? The weight of every prayer ever whispered. The terrible knowledge that if he fails, darkness will claim not just this world, but the memory of light itself. And then, at the moment when night seems darkest, when even the morning star wavers, before the rising of the sun, Eärendil slew Ancalagon the Black. Notice the timing. Before the rising of the sun. The victory comes not at noon, when heroes are strongest, but in the darkest hour before dawn. The light wins, but only just. And the cost? Eärendil can never come home. He is exiled to the sky forever, sailing the heavens as the morning star. A reminder that some victories demand everything. A dragon falls burning from the sky. Mountains shatter. The first light of a new age catches on broken stone. And high above, a lonely ship sails on, forever. This is Tolkien's answer to every shallow monster story. The greatest evils can only be faced by heroes willing to sacrifice not just their lives, but their worlds. But Ancalagon doesn't spring from Tolkien's imagination alone. He stands at the crossroads of every culture's ultimate nightmare. Jörmungandr, the world serpent of Norse myth, whose body encircles the earth. At Ragnarok, he will rise from the ocean, poison the sky with his breath, and bring about the twilight of the gods. Nidhogg, the dragon who gnaws at the roots of the world tree, whose patient corruption is entropy itself. Not swift destruction, but the slow, inevitable grinding down of hope. Beowulf's dragon, whose treasure lust mirrors his slayer's glory hunger. A monster whose death is also the hero's doom, leaving nothing but ashes and song. Typhon of Greek myth, the storm giant whose wings darkened the heavens, whose 100 heads breathed fire and spoke in the voices of every beast. Even Zeus trembled before him. Each culture dreams its own version of the final enemy, the monster that doesn't just threaten heroes or kingdoms, but reality itself. Tolkien gathered these archetypal fears and forged something new, a dragon whose defeat doesn't restore the status quo, but changes the nature of what's possible. Because here's the secret that sets Ancalagon apart from every other ultimate evil. He's beautiful. In Morgoth's halls, Ancalagon began as something glorious. The greatest of the Maya, spirits of fire and air, shaped into dragon form. Before he became the winged death, he was winged majesty. This is Tolkien's deepest tragedy. Evil doesn't create, it corrupts. The most terrible monsters were once the most wonderful beings. Ancalagon's fall doesn't just end the threat of darkness, it ends the possibility of such dangerous beauty existing in the world. And with that silence, something precious dies forever. Eärendil's triumph saves Middle-earth. It also diminishes it. This is Tolkien's most bitter wisdom. Every victory against ultimate evil costs something irreplaceable. The dragons retreat, but so does wonder. Watch what happens after Ancalagon's fall. The sky grows smaller. The songs lose their highest notes. Children born in the New Age will hear tales of dragons and smile indulgently. Surely such things never really existed. Centuries later, a hobbit named Bilbo will face Smaug the Mighty and think himself terribly brave. And he is. But Smaug is to Ancalagon as a candle flame to the sun. The monsters that remain are echoes of a vanished thunder. Tolkien called this the long defeat, the slow, inevitable fading of wonder from the world. Each victory against darkness preserves what we love, but at the cost of making it smaller, safer, more ordinary. But here's the comfort. The courage doesn't shrink with the monsters. Samwise Gamgee in Shelob's tunnel shows the same heart that Eärendil bore against Ancalagon. The scale changes. The quality of heroism remains eternal. Quick cuts. Sam raising Sting in a dark tunnel, Merry drawing his blade against the Witch King, Frodo reaching for the ring at Mount Doom. Small figures against vast darkness, each echoing the moment when one mariner faced the end of everything. This is why Tolkien's world feels so real, because it acknowledges what every honest heart knows. The victories that matter most are the ones that cost us something precious. The age of Ancalagon is over. The age of hobbits has begun, and somehow, impossibly, the light burns just as bright. So what do these monsters teach us in the end? Across 7 episodes, we've walked with shadow and flame, rage, hunger, lies, despair, the unnamed, and now annihilation itself. Each monster holds up a mirror. In their darkness, we see not just our fears, but our capacity to face them. The Balrog teaches us about confronting buried rage, and the terrible cost of letting ancient anger consume us. Shelob shows us hunger without purpose, consumption without joy, and Sam's courage reminds us that love is stronger than any darkness. Smaug reflects our own greed, the way possessions can possess us. And Bilbo's mercy teaches that the only cure for dragon sickness is generosity. The Watcher forces us to face the unnamed terrors that lurk in our own depths, and the Fellowship's unity reminds us we don't have to face them alone. And Ancalagon? He is every impossible challenge, every situation where the odds are so overwhelming that victory seems to require becoming someone else entirely. Like Eärendil, we sometimes face monsters so vast that defeating them changes us forever. The parent who sacrifices their dreams for their child's future, the doctor who works themselves to exhaustion to save lives, the teacher who gives everything to reach a single struggling student. These aren't glamorous victories, they don't make headlines, but they echo Eärendil's choice to become something greater by giving up something precious. Modern hands close the book, but the fire in the pages doesn't dim. Every reader who finishes these tales carries a little of that light forward into their own dark nights, their own impossible battles, their own chances to choose courage over comfort. Tolkien believed that fairy stories offer what he called eucatastrophe, the sudden turn when darkness breaks and light returns. Not because it's easy, but because someone was willing to pay the price. The candle burns down to its socket. In its final flicker, we see not endings, but beginnings. Every small act of courage that keeps the darkness at bay. The age of monsters may be over. The age of heroes never ends. And sometimes, in the quiet moments when we choose to be brave, to be kind, to keep going when everything seems hopeless, we catch a glimpse of Eärendil's ship, still sailing the heavens, still carrying the light that broke the sky. Thank you for walking these dark paths with us. Wherever you face your own dragons, may you find the fire that once cast down Ancalagon, and may it guide you home. Next time on Middle-earth Unveiled, we've seen dragons break the sky. Now witness the sea break the world. A single wave, higher than mountains, rises to sweep away the greatest civilization of men. Pride, paradise, and power, all drowned in a heartbeat. This is the wave, the fall of Númenor. Will you survive the coming flood?